All right. Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year's Six podcast. Today I'll be continuing my week three game previews for the 2023 football season. Special guest today, we got Dan Thompson from Stadium Gale, one of the elite Florida Gators football podcasts. There's no shortage of great podcasts out there if you're a Florida Gators fan, and if you are one, Stadium Gale very, very well. Dan, thank you for coming on today. Definitely appreciate you taking your time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Excited to be here. It's a big week. It's an exciting week.
No, for sure. My flight to Orlando is in about 12 hours. I'll be there in person. I can't wait to get back to Ben Hill Griffin.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be up there Friday afternoon, staying until Sunday. So we'll be out and about and looking forward to a good game in the Swamp.
No, absolutely. One of the great early season ones. If you haven't figured it out already, this is the Florida Tennessee preview video. If you haven't watched any of these videos before, it's just going to be team by team, keys to the game for both sides. Dan will be repping Florida. If we had a Tennessee person on, they'd rep Tennessee, so I'll have to do them for the for the time being, and then at the end, picks, predictions, all that fun stuff. I start off with the away team, so I'll try to breeze through Tennessee real quick. Just keys to the game, all of the things they've got going on. From a Tennessee perspective, just looking at a roster composition, I'm interested what they're going to do at linebacker this week. They got some injuries out there. Guys like Quincy Garland are questionable, may not play. Keenan Peely may not play. And when they run a 4-2-5 defense, that position is it's suspect. You need your ones and twos. So I'm interested to see, not just what guys like Elijah Herring are going to bring to the table and Aaron Beasley, but their second string guys, how they're going to rotate in. Guys like Jeremiah Tillander, who is a true freshman, hasn't had a ton of playing time yet. Khalid Perry, younger guys that haven't risen to the top of the depth chart yet. This is a huge game for them to arrive. It's a hostile environment. They are not going to be well received, and to throw them into the fire like that is going to be tough for this Tennessee defense. I'm interested to see if those guys can rise to the occasion with the injuries at the linebacker position, but time will tell whether or not that comes into fruition. In terms of what Tennessee has done well, week over week or through the last 2 weeks, when you think of Tennessee, you think of that high tempo passing attack. That hasn't been the case so far this year. They're actually the number 4 rushing offense in all of college football so far. So I look at that as that's an opportunity for them to continue to excel in. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And if they're running out here and running all over Virginia and Austin Peay, Florida's not the same caliber of defense, obviously, but if it's been working so far, I would expect them to go back to the run. I would expect them to, capitalize on what's been working for them with Joe Milton, with Jabari Small, guys like that who have contributed to that run game so far this year. And then, what I'm interested to see from Tennessee is, that time of possession. So when you think of that Tennessee offense, you think score in 2 minutes, and then the defense will figure it out and we'll score in 2 minutes again afterwards. Right now, 128th in time of possession. So they're running the ball a lot and they're running that clock, but they're not keeping the ball in their offense's hands. So I'm very interested to see if they can slow down their pace of play to, choose some clock and still score at the pace that they'll need to beat Florida on Saturday. So if they can put that all together, if those linebackers can rise to the occasion, if they can continue to run the ball the way that they have so far this year, and if they can keep the ball in their offense's hands, knowing that that's the specialty of this team, Tennessee's going to have a shot. They're going to be the favorite going into this. They're going to be, the team that everyone outside of Florida is favoring and probably rooting for. And those are real realities of how they're going to across the finish line at this point. So moving on to Florida's keys to the game, Dan. Just to start off in general. What are your thoughts, expectations, feelings kind of going into this game? It's obviously a big one. It's Florida's first real home test of the season. What are you thinking going into this game?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, Florida laid a big egg against Utah, kind of shot themselves in the foot multiple times. I was in the red zone 4 times, scored once. Um, and then obviously look good against McNeese State. And again, that is McNeese State. But what you want to see in that game is execution. What you want to see is them doing what they should do to a team called McNeese State, right? So they win that game 49-7. It should have been a shutout. There was a walk-on that had a fumble deep in their own end, and they were able to convert. So, Florida right now is still a bit of an enigma. Going into the season, weren't totally sure what you'd get out of Graham Mertz. And I think that Gator fans are at least pleased enough. He's not an Anthony Richardson type quarterback. He's certainly not a Kyle Trask, but he's been asked to do or he's done what he's been asked to do. He's had 1 interception on the year, and that ball went through the hands of Ricky Pearsall to Utah, and they were able to score quickly on that drive. But for all intents and purposes, Ricky Pearsall's done, Graham Mertz, has done a fine job. The rushing attack, you didn't see it much against Utah be successful. And then against McNeese State, they ran for over 300 yards, right? So again, Florida's just in a position right now where they shot themselves in the foot, lost to what we'll see is a decent Utah team, at least the returning Pac-12 champions. And then McNeese State, I think a lot of Gator fans are excited about what they've seen on defense. They've played well. They've been able to do well in coverage and tackle well and limit penalties. And so that's what you want. You want to see some probably increased pressures off the defensive ends and stuff like that. But for the most part, Florida, has done okay this season. Defense has certainly played above expectations, and then offense is just a matter of shooting themselves in the foot. A lot of penalties against Utah. So we'll find out on Saturday night.
No, absolutely. I think Florida is one of those many teams out there that is still, finding out who they really are. It's a long season, and 2 or 3 games is not going to determine who you are at the end of it. The team that showed up against Utah is not going to be the team that shows up against FSU. Still
Right.
plenty of time to figure out who they want to be, how they respond to that adversity, and how they're going to show up to a ranked opponent at home is a great test to open up the SEC schedule. From a roster point of view, obviously Florida's been a little beat up to start the year, not as healthy as we may like. I'm really looking more so at the receiver position. So there's been quite a few of the more experienced guys who are questionable, didn't play last week. Guys like Marcus Burke, Khalil Jackson, things of that general nature. Where do you see the opportunity for some of the younger guys on this roster to step up? We've seen Trey Wilson play a pretty big role in the receiving game and on those those swing passes and all of that. But where do you see kind of some of those depth players playing into this game this week?
Yeah, we'll find out tomorrow when the depth chart gets released, who's all going to be healthy, but certainly getting Marcus Burke back would be great. I forgot the player that lost his position to Babe Ruth when he got injured, and Babe Ruth stepped in and then never got it back, right? And I think that's probably what's going to happen to Khalil Jackson with Eugene Wilson or Trey Wilson. Probably one of the Gators' most electric freshmen that they've had in quite some times in terms of at least his first step and his ability to instantly accelerate is probably something that Florida hasn't seen in maybe a decade plus. So I think when you look at the Gators wide receiving group, Ricky Pearsall is obviously your leader of the group. He led the team in receptions and receiving yards last year. He's doing the same thing this year. He's going to be your X receiver. If you can get Marcus Burke back and certainly have Caleb Douglas there as well, those are going to be your number 2 option. And then Trey Wilson has got to be now the 3rd option. He showed against Utah that quick burst, and then certainly he showed it again against McNeese State. And so I think that he's earned that opportunity to at least get some significant playing time. Do I think as a starter that means it's just going to be those 3 or 4 guys? No. Khalil Jackson will certainly play. There's certainly a chance for Aiden Mizell or Andy Jean, as freshmen to come in as well. But, Florida getting back healthy, and they do have some electric playmakers. A lot of them are young, but they do have some electric playmakers. The biggest thing that Florida has to worry about with the receiving group as a whole is being able to move the ball downfield. They've had a lot of swing passes. They've had a lot of and just kind of quick outs. Florida's got to be able to move the ball more than 2 or 3 or 4 yards in the air. They've got to be able to connect on some deep passes. They did that against McNeese State a little bit. There was a 50-yard bomb to Ricky Pearsall that looked great. But Florida, in order to beat Tennessee, can't just do your 2, 3, 4 yard outlet passes. They've got to be able to move the ball in the air. And so that's what we'll be looking to see. And that's going to be a lot about play calling as well. I think on top of that, and you might get to this, the offensive line for the Gators looked atrocious against Utah, looked fine against McNeese State. Florida's got to be better on the offensive line. They get their starting center back, but if they can't protect Graham Mertz, I think he was sacked 5 times against Utah. That's going to certainly, hamper the Gators' ability to move the ball.
No, I think you hit it, spot on. The play calling has been a piece of criticism about Napier on the offensive side of the ball. And I think, the overall point being that, these younger guys are going to have a huge opportunity to step up this week, regardless of who is back in the lineup or who's not. And, I know it's going to be a friendly crowd for those individuals, but the lights are still going to shine. It's still going to be a rival game at home. And it's a tall task to ask of anyone who's 18, 19 years old and stepping in the swamp for, second time. When I look at what Florida has really done well so far this year, I look at the vast improvement on the defensive side of the ball, specifically third down. It feels night and day difference. The days of third and Grantham are gone, hopefully for this year and beyond. They went from a bottom 100 team in the country,
second
on third
worst
down,
in the FBS,
and now they're seventh right now. And I know it's a small sample size, but clear progress has been made with the addition of Armstrong, and being more aggressive on third down. How do you see Florida continuing to succeed on defense on third down, knowing that Tennessee's offense is as prolific as it has been? Utah was a little bit more run heavy with rising out. McNeese is McNeese. This is a whole different ball game for Florida. So how do you see that defense on third down stepping up and making plays that they need to?
Yeah, the Gators have only allowed 5 conversions on third down this entire season. You mentioned it. Florida allowed almost 50% last year. So certainly in the first 2 weeks, those are improvements as a whole. Tennessee is obviously a different team this year than they were last year. They lose a couple of their deeper returning or their deep wide receiver threats. And certainly they've been running the ball quite a bit more this year. Florida's done a good job of stopping the ball and certainly limiting long carries. I think Utah's running backs, I think as a whole, they only had 105 yards rushing. McNeese State was less than 50. So, Florida's been able to stop the run against those two teams. Now, we'll see with Joe Milton, right? I have some questions about Joe Milton as a passer. Certainly he's not prone to turn the ball over, but I don't think that he's nearly as accurate as Hendon Hooker is. And Florida's got to be able to attack Joe Milton and force him to beat them in the air. Now, certainly he has an electric arm. He can throw the ball 70, 80 yards. The big thing that Florida needs to do is they need to force him to throw the ball and potentially under duress. Now, he is a mobile quarterback, so Florida's going to certainly have to play some contain there, and that could open up some lanes for the rushing attack that Tennessee has. But Florida right now on the defensive side of the ball, their cornerbacks have been playing well. Their safeties, Jordan Castell, a freshman, has been playing quite a few snaps at safety, and he's done well so far. But you have some inexperience in the safety room as a whole. Florida's linebackers, they're replacing their top 2 linebackers this season. You have a freshman or you have a sophomore and another sophomore, I think, in those roles, right? So one of them, this is his first time getting true meaningful playing time throughout the entire game. So, it's going to be a question of focus and making sure that you're attacking your assignments and you're attacking your blocks and you're making the right reads out on the field. Shamar James, Gators linebacker, true sophomore. He's played outstanding this year. Scooby Williams, the other linebacker, has played well in the time that he's played, but now it's going to be Florida's toughest opportunity this season to be able to get after the quarterback. And what you're going to need to see out of them is Prince Ingham and Milan, who at some mock drafts was a top 3 third round or top 3 rounds, draft pick. He's not played exceptionally well this year. You haven't seen a ton of push from that or from the defensive line on the opposing offensive line. So those are things that you have to be cautious about. And I think Gator fans is excited as we think we should be about the defense. There's still some question marks that Gator fans should have about facing a high-powered, high-speed offense like Tennessee has. And Josh Heupel, won last year running an offense that kind of gassed the Gators on defense last year. So we'll see what they're able to do this year. But Austin Armstrong certainly been a welcome addition as defensive coordinator this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the youth movement and that kind of aggressive play of this defense has been, such a nice change of pace to what we've seen in the past. Like the tackling is a lot better, the ability to just have that field presence. I liked what I saw out of Scooby last week. He was a lot more present and a lot more consistent across the board. Shamar may be Ventral 2.0, hopefully. That's the goal. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of youth in that secondary. You brought up guys like Castell, Kamari Wilson playing, kind of sparingly so far, but part of that youth. Jakeem Jackson, guys like that are going to get their opportunities this week and beyond. Final question for you before we get into predictions and close out here. While Florida has been much better on third down this year on defense, they've struggled on third down on offense. I know a lot of that probably came from the Utah game. I don't remember Florida being on third down a whole lot versus McNeese. They were just running for 7 yards a carry and just taking it to the house. But Florida has really struggled on third down so far. And ultimately you can't give a team like Tennessee any chances. So if they're not going to be able to advance the ball on third down, Tennessee can score in 3 plays or less when they get the ball back. What are you looking for on the offensive side? I know you've talked about things like the play calling. What are you looking for from Florida on the offensive side of the ball when it is third down? What type of schemes and ideas are you looking for so that they can be better on third down against a high quality opponent?
Yeah, Florida's numbers on third down are a little skewed because they sat in a great position against Utah on many third downs, and then they got 4 or 5 penalties on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 during that game, or 3rd and 2. I think Florida averaged about 7 yards a play on first down against Utah. And then their average to go on third down was about 10 yards, a little bit north of 10 yards. So it really depends on first down and second down, what third down looks like. And if Florida sits at 3rd and 1, the chance of converting that, or at least your options, are significantly higher than they are if you're 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7. So Florida's got to be able to get some yards on first and second down, hopefully get an opportunity on first down to get 7-8 yards. And that gives you 2 options, whether it means, really trying to go for that first down, or you go for maybe a deeper play, knowing that you have just 2 yards to go left in the bag. So that's what we want to see out of Florida, is how can they move the ball on first down and second down so that they find themselves in a position to be 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, and then not have those false start penalties or the illegal formation penalties and some of these things that you just were kind of boneheaded. Maybe it's the first game of the season. Maybe there's just some communication issues and you didn't see those against McNeese State. It's, again, tough for me to judge the Gators' performance against McNeese State, just because the score could have very easily been 49-0, right? So on first down, like I said, I do want to see the Gators try to open up the passing attack a little bit more. We know that Florida, is very much a conservative offense. They run their wide receivers ragged east-west. So I do want to see Florida be able to try to push the ball through the air so they find themselves on 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 1 to give yourself some options. But, a lot of that is going to come down to discipline in this game. And certainly it's a less hostile environment than Utah is playing at home, but that Tennessee defensive line is a beast. They're monsters over there. So got to make sure that Damian George, the right tackle, is prepared and limits some of those penalties that he had against Utah. And so we'll see. But that's what Florida's got to do. But they've got to be able to move the ball through the air and not just on these swing passes, because I think that's something that Tennessee is definitely going to notice and pick up on during this game.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think a lot of the narrative coming out of that Utah game is Utah didn't beat Florida. Florida beat themselves, and that's, I think it's disrespectful to Utah. Obviously, I think they're a talented team, but like when we look at those opportunities that Florida could have taken that next step. To your point, a false start on 3rd and 1 becomes a 3rd and 6. That's a lot
Mhm.
harder. The play calling and using Mertz as that game manager QB. He's not going to be Trask or AR. He's going to
Mhm.
be the dude that gets that first down. I think you hit it spot on there. All
And you've
right,
got to score when you have opportunities, right? Florida
right.
had a fumble against Utah in the red zone. Utah went down and scored that drive. So you have they also had a missed field goal and Utah scored too. So right, so that's a 10-point swing. The other one's a 7-point swing. So Florida was in the red zone 4 times, ends up with 8 total points. So you've got to score when you have opportunities because Tennessee's going to score some points this game. Despite how well Austin Armstrong is received so far in Gainesville, Florida is still very young on defense. There's 2 starting safeties are a freshman and a sophomore. Their defensive backs are a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman. Their linebackers are 2 sophomores. Their defensive line has a little bit more experience, but I don't even think that they're starting a true senior on their entire defense. So, they've got to play smart and they've got to be able to limit Tennessee scoring and then get those opportunities when you have them.
No, absolutely. I think it's Billy's whole pitch, like execution, execution, execution. And like I know this is such a young squad, and I mean this is such a high pressure environment for them. But if they are going to come out ahead, that execution is going to have to rise to the top, no matter who's doing it, a freshman, senior, or anything in between.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's all the question preview I've got on my end. Before I make the actual prediction and everything like that, Dan, where can they find you on socials, YouTube, whatever you want to plug? Get your 5 minutes in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. You can follow the podcast. It's Stadium and Gale, Gale. That's the intersection where the football is, Stadium Road and Gale Lemron. And you can follow me on social media at DK Thompson on Twitter. And you can follow us on the podcast account at Stadium and Gale on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right, yeah, perfect, Dan. Once again, thank you for coming on. Definitely appreciate it. My first guest ever. Hopefully the first of many. Trying to build this up a little bit, but definitely appreciate having and rooting for the good guys too. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
always
good guys.
that's always fun. All right, so on my end, I'll make a score prediction. Dan, you wanna do one first to kick it off as our guest?
Yeah, I like the Gators to win this game. I think that the defense comes to play. I think that they surprise some teams from an execution perspective. So I'm gonna do Gators 27 to 24.
All right, that's a close one. It's a good one. I think it'll be a fun one this weekend. And then for those of you not following super closely, just to give you a little bit of a line, Tennessee is the favorite heading into Saturday. They're currently favored by 6.5 points, and the total is 58.5. Personally speaking, I say scrub all that because Florida's going to win. Take the straight. Don't worry about score. Don't worry about points. Florida's got this. I'm going to say Florida 28, Tennessee 21. A little bit more low scoring than what we've seen before. I think it's going to come together. The defense holds. The offense does enough to get Florida in a position to win. And that's the big upset coming out of Saturday. It's seen as kind of a week as a result. And this is one of those opportunities to come out of it, on Sunday looking good and looking prepared for the rest of the season. All right, that is everything on my end. So once again, thank you, Dan, for coming on today. Definitely appreciate you having on and again representing the Florida Gators today. Tune in next time if you're watching on YouTube. I got a couple more preview videos left. I got Minnesota, North Carolina still, and Washington versus Michigan State still to film. So they'll do those. So watch those later this week. But yeah, thank you all for watching. What are your thoughts for this game? Who do you think is going to win? What are your keys to the game? Comment those below. And then, thank you all for your time. Saturday can't come soon enough. And in this case, go Gators.
Enjoy your time in Gainesville, my friend.
All right. Talk to you soon.